Great to be here with Joel Fitzgibbon, the Minister for Agriculture, representatives of the beef industry here in this part of Australia, and of course our candidate for the seat of Capricornia, Peter Freiligas. And I acknowledge, where's Kirsten gone? There she is, Kirsten Livermore. Okay, Kirsten Livermore, who was elected to the Parliament with me back in 1998, and neither of us have aged one bit since then. So, well, Kirsten hasn't, I have. What we're here to talk about is the absolute importance of the beef industry to Australia's future. As a little kid growing up, I can't claim to have been on a big beef property, but my father was a share farmer. We had about 140, I think, dairy and 80 beef. And so I learned a bit about cattle back in those days, but not a lot. Here the industry is a serious industry. And up here in central Queensland, it's an important part of the nation's beef industry. I think we're the world's second largest beef exporters today. That'd be right. And so it's a critical industry for Australia's future. When I look at some of the figures, the beef production and live cattle exports worth about 7.8 billion in the year 2011-2012. When you look at the overall employment in the industry, across meat processing and the rest, you're looking at about 180,000 plus Australians. So this is an important industry for Australia's future, and it's served us so well in the past. When I look at the rest of the world, in particular the rising demand for protein in developing Asia, there is a huge future for Australian beef. Take next door in Indonesia. In Indonesia, I think from memory, the average per capita consumption now is about 2 kilograms per person per year. As they move up the income spectrum, it's likely to rise more likely to 16 to 18 kilograms per person per year. Now that is a huge increase in overall demand for protein. The Indonesians, obviously, have a national target of food self-sufficiency over time. On the way through though, there are still huge opportunities for Australian beef. There'll be competitors as well. But it's not just Indonesia. If I go to China, the rising protein demand in that country, as well as other parts of developing Asia. And as a result, I believe we are only at the beginnings of a very bright future for the Australian beef industry. Though, having spoken with your representatives now, things are pretty tough for a number of growers. Some of the challenges we've had recently in the Indonesian market, I'd much rather acknowledge that up front and head on, present difficulties for growers, and we've been seeking to work our way through with those challenges with the Indonesians as well. I had good discussions recently with President Yudhoyono in Jakarta about the future of both the live export trade with Indonesia, as well as the future of Australian investment in the future of the Indonesian herd itself. The way the Indonesians see this is that it's a two-way street, which has got some really big win-win opportunities for us all. On the trade side, obviously for the period ahead, both from Australia and elsewhere, they're still going to need to import beef, both live X and boxed meat as well. On the other side, they're actually looking for future investment in the development of their own herd as well. One of the reasons why the Minister, Joel Fitzgibbon, and I, and the Development Minister, Melissa Park, worked on this new Australia-Indonesia Beef Forum, supported by a beef fund of some $60 million, is to provide an avenue for Australian investors and Indonesians, together with this government fund, to invest long-term in animal genetics in Indonesia to build their own herd. The great thing about Australia is that we control so much of the world's intellectual property when it comes to animal genetics and development of a strong herd. And that is mindful of the fact that the Indonesians are serious about long-term food self-sufficiency. So on the way through, we're trying to do what we can to maintain a significant live export market. On the other hand, we're going to be investing longer term, again, in terms of the quality of the Indonesian herd. But we're doing both these things to produce a win-win outcome for Australia. Now, the global branding of Australian beef, you've done a good job as an industry so far. I've been in Japan, and I've been out there with Japanese prime ministers and foreign ministers who regularly order Aussie beef. They love it, and they should. It's great quality stuff. That's right. And can I just say, the quality of our beef sells itself. So what you blokes are doing out on the land, I just say you're doing the right thing. It's meeting the tastes of so many of the consumers across Asia. But at a practical level, we also need to get behind things like the Beef Australia Expo. Now, Rockhampton, as I remember from the days of good old Rex Philby, there's a blast from the past, was always the beef capital of Queensland. And therefore, it's appropriate that we get behind this continuing initiative in Rocky as well. Beef Expo, I think, is held every 3 years, is it right? And I remember the first thing that Kirsten Livermore did after I was elected Prime Minister after 2007 was come rattling into my door and said, we need $2.5 million to fund what was then called Beef Week, I think, up here, Beef Expo. Beef Australia, Beef Expo. And so Kirsten secured that support. She then went hurtling around to the Agriculture Minister's office, and the rest is history. So this has had bipartisan support since the election of the government back in 2007. So it's with great pleasure today that with the Minister for Agriculture, Joel Fitzgibbon, that I announce today a further contribution of $2.5 million in the funding of the next Beef Australia Expo here in Rocky to showcase Australia's cattle industry, supporting jobs and securing new markets. One final thing while I've got all your attention. I'll be talking a bit more about this tomorrow, but more broadly we're very proud of our contributions to the development of Rocky in central Queensland. Coming down on the plane just before from Townsville, I looked at some of the figures. We've invested just under $130 million in your local schools. 60 new school libraries, is that right, Kirsten? Some 7,000 computers in schools for high schools. $20 million for 8 new trades training centres. We're also working, hopefully, to negotiate with the Queensland Government a big new injection of funding through the Better Schools Plan. And I'm particularly pleased seeing some of that work out at Rockhampton Base Hospital on the way through. Yep. Because I remember being back here earlier when we committed $76 million to expand the hospital, 60 additional beds as well as some additional rehab beds as well. Yep. And we've also been investing in other areas as well. And I'd like to draw your attention in particular to what we've been doing on roads and the work we've been doing on the Bruce Highway and the Peak Downs Highway, but also on the National Broadband Network as well. Nearly 9,000 homes and businesses in and around Capricornia where the NBN fibre network is under construction or complete, and 60,000 will be done by 30 June 2016. So why do I say all that? I'm pretty proud of our record of investment up here, whether it's in schools, whether it's in the hospitals, whether it's in roads, whether it's also in the new infrastructure of the future, the NBN, because we believe in the importance of jobs here in central Queensland. Now, having said that, Joel, do you want to add at all?
Not necessarily.
Okay, Joel will be there for all the hard questions. I'll answer the easy ones. And over to you, folks.